Hello, young farmers. Welcome to another episode of our podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. And today we welcome an awesome guest by the name of Zen, who is going to be telling us a little bit more about his journey, his initiatives, as well as his community development programs. Hi, Zen. Welcome.
Good morning, Tuli.
How are you today?
Great, thank you very much.
Great. So for those who don't know who you are or are meeting you for the first time, can you tell us a little bit more about who Zen is, as well as the story behind Manger Care Center?
Oh, no problem. So my name is Zen Teigte. I'm the CEO for an organization called Manger Care Center. The organization's been in existence for about 40 years this year. Myself, I'm 41 years old. So, what we do is we basically look after homeless people and also find a way for homeless people to reintegrate them back into society. So along with that, we focus primarily on agriculture and food security as a way of sustaining the organization and generating an income for the organization. So with that, we specialize in turnkey farming, agricultural projects, and setting up farms all over South Africa, and then coaching and mentoring emerging Black farmers. So sort of in a nutshell, yes.
Nice. So you mentioned something interesting. You mentioned that the organization is 40 years old and you 41. So is this a family business, or did you register the business at the age of 1?
So the organization was started by my father. So he was a drug addict, alcoholic, and then, decided, he gave his life to the Lord and said he wants to bless and help and look after people with that had the same circumstances that he was busy staying in. So the organization was started by my father, and he passed away also when I was very young. So after that, my mother continued with the organization, and she's also retired. And a few years after that, the legacy is still going strong. And I'm the driver of the organization. So, we're still continuing to assist and to help people. So,
Nice. That's some amazing work that you're doing. So tell us a little bit more about where the idea of using agriculture as a tool for transformation, for reintegration, as well as, obviously sustaining the business came from. What sparked that?
So I came from an IT background, and actually I'm a very logical person. So just figured, let's look at ways of assisting people and, teaching people a skill, and what better than to start with agriculture. So I also figured out that I love farming, and I'm passionate about farming, and, we can make this into something productive. At the same time, being a non-profit organization, you always battle to get food, and if you want to feed the nation, you've got to grow the nation.
Absolutely.
So from that, it stemmed out, and we started with a small little vegetable tunnel or greenhouse, and we were doing hydroponics in that greenhouse. That was a 3 by 12 meter greenhouse that we used to grow in, and just from there expanded, put up another one. After a while we sat with like 12, 16 greenhouses, and then started going a bit bigger, and before you knew it, we were already sitting on about 1 hectare of greenhouses.
Wow.
And so from that we capitalized and just expanded. So we've literally taken small steps and grown the agricultural space within our sector, so which is great.
That is great. So you mentioned hydroponics. Are you guys primarily farming using hydroponics, or do you mix with the traditional farming?
So in the past, we used to do only hydroponics. We used to apply open hydroponic context with a growing methodology. But since then, we've also expanded. We're primarily using conventional planting now at the moment. But we build farms for people. So, So we've literally, from scratch, somebody would come to us and say, I've got a piece of ground. This is what I want to do. I've got 1 hectare, and then we look at the correct methodology for growing for that person and to assist and to help them. So we do the fencing, we do the balls, we do the soil analysis, water analysis, a full turnkey program. So yeah, we also accredited with AgriCETA, so we also give accredited agricultural training, and then we also a commercial seedling grower. So our current capacity is around about 2.2 million plants. So we literally just wanted to close the loop when it came to coaching and mentoring emerging farmers. So yeah, so in a nutshell, we combine everything that we've learned, and we can apply those things in a logical manner and assist people to expand their farms. So yeah.
No, that's really lovely and very inspiring. So you mentioned that you also assist people that, want to go into farming. So let's say we have a candidate that says, I have a hectare of land and I want to start crop farming. How do you guys go about that process? Do they need to pay anything upfront, or do you guys assist and then you obviously work on some sort of contractual agreement? How would you describe the process for someone watching who is interested but doesn't know where to start?
Yeah. So generally what we do is we work on a site assessment. We do have a small fee that we charge as a consultancy fee to go and actually do a site assessment. And then from there, we will look at the site and we'll do the practical planning for that. So we'll see if they've got enough electricity, if they've got enough water supply, what the soil quality looks like, what the water quality looks like. We then also look at the different markets within the area and how to assist them and to actually link them up with those markets. So what we also then assist farmers with is to take that, what we've done, put it into some sort of a business plan, give it back to the client, and from there they can then go and actually apply for funding or look for funding. But at least they one step forward. They know where the gap is and
Right.
what to close the gap. So we just compile that whole list for them. So it just makes it easier for farmers, and I think especially young farmers. A lot of the guys, they are not 100% sure, how to start or where to start. So what we also say to people is just start somewhere. If you've got a small little veggie patch at home, you've started,
Right.
and you're already pushing in the right direction. So, but we try and bridge that gap for them to actually become semi-commercial or commercial farmers. Yeah.
Lovely. So we've spoken a lot about how you assist, the community and people in the agricultural space, but I know that you also do have farms, as you mentioned. So with your farms, what are you mostly focused on growing? Are there specific crops? Do you do mixed farming, or is it strictly crop production? And in that, what crops do you grow?
So from our side, we've got a farm in Babsfontein, it's about just over 10 hectares. On there, we've got 5 hectares of arable land. Our anchor crop is cabbage. Then from there, we do spinach and beetroot, sort of as rotation crops. And then we've got another site in Pretoria where we've also got a few greenhouses where we're also growing crops. And then we've also got a farm in Nailstrom, Limpopo side, which we've got a JV with a company. That side we're primarily doing chilies.
Okay.
And then we've also got our head office where we are growing all of our vegetable seedlings, which we then also sell the seedlings to farmers. And then we've got another site where we've got an intensive greenhouse operation where we've got about a quarter hectare that we also growing various different crops throughout the year. So yeah, so we try and push with the Babsfontein farm primarily doing cabbages and the spinach and the beetroot. But yeah, we've also set up various different farms. So from small scale farms to big cannabis facilities. So the range is very diverse in what we've done and work that we have done. So yeah, so we can build anything. So yeah.
No, that's really exciting to hear, especially for someone out there that wants to start. You are definitely someone that shows them that they can. So tell me a little bit more about food security. You mentioned that one of the core objectives of the organization is food security. How do you work around that to make sure that the food that you are growing, the crops that you are growing, are secure and healthy for people to eat and constantly, grow food, secure food?
So, from the food security point of view, is we look at what is needed, and obviously we look at the staple crops. Those are sort of the crops that we want to focus on, and then expand on that. So when it comes to crop quality, we also do what we call MRL tests, or maximum residual limits. So just to make sure that there's not excessive pesticides or anything like that applied to the crops. And again, we as an organization, we try to sell at least 80% of our crops, and then subsidiary crops that we cannot take to the market is then for own consumption. So those we will then utilize for our own consumption for the people staying at the organization. And we look after about 350 people on a daily basis. So that's what we house, clothe, feed. And again, that's 350 meals that we've got to provide every single day. Then we also have a soup kitchen where we assisting ECD creches in Davidton and in Twatwa. So that side, we've got about 2,500 plus children that we then also need to feed. So when we look at food security within the organization, those are the volumes that we focus on. So so it's quite diverse.
Nice. Yeah. So for a farmer watching this, saying, you know what, I would love to help in terms of, like you're saying, maybe giving you some of their crops or things of that nature. Do you work or collaborate with other farmers, other organizations like food organizations to assist you with taking care of all these people that you are currently assisting?
Yeah, most definitely. So when it comes to farmers, a lot of farmers might have subsidiary crop or crops that they cannot send to the market, or last minute that the markets have dropped them. So a lot of those farmers will donate their crops to us, which we will then utilize and feed other people. We also work with various different corporates and corporate social investment organizations as well. And they also focus then specifically maybe on products as well as various other items. So at the Babsfontein farm, we've got a farm very close to us, which is Kutam Farms. They usually donate also quite a few vegetables to us. We've also got Clearwater Farms, which is another big farm in that side. And again, on a weekly basis, they also donate to us. So we also, if we've got excess food and things like that, we also help a lot of other organizations. So at any time, we are distributing between 10 to about 15 tons of food every single week. So that's food that comes into the organization and goes out to other organizations. So from us, we work like a food bank, and we then supply those foods to about 20 or 30 other different organizations. So to give you an example, we had a truckload of potatoes that came in last week. Last week Friday. So that's about 56 tons of potatoes. So that 56 tons of potatoes is redistributed in a matter of a week. So so we assist other organizations, and we network with other organizations and other farmers as well. Yeah.
Awesome. So for organizations that are watching this, how can they reach you? Where can they reach you? And do you mind just sharing your contact details or email addresses, or both, whichever one works for you?
Yeah, so we are on Facebook. We're also on Instagram. You can see Manger Care Center MCC. Those are our handles. You can also reach out at zen@mcctraining.co.za. Our office number will be 011 747 8700. Cell phone number will be 079-180-2588. And again, we open for collaboration and to assist farmers wherever necessary. So, and I think that's also one of the biggest concepts is we as farmers, we need to look after each other and assist each other wherever possible. So everybody's got knowledge and everybody's got some knowledge to share.
Right.
And I think if we can just network more on that and assist each other, the South Africa would be in a lot better place.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So tell me about some challenges that you faced. I mean, as we keep talking, I realize that your business model is very heavily focused on assisting, right? But in you assisting, who assists you? So what are some challenges that you've faced during your journey?
So I think one of the biggest challenges is always funding and getting enough funding to actually grow and expand your organization and to also assist more people. So funding would be one of the biggest challenges. A second one would obviously be climate and climate related issues. So that is always a problem. Then we also look at pests and diseases when it comes to our crops. So those are three of the major challenges that we've got. Another one would also be the people. So we obviously on our model, we focus on reintegrating homeless people back into society. So a person will come to the organization, they will get a place to stay, they'll get 3 meals a day. We also look at putting them through some sort of agricultural qualification. They also do a life skills course, also end user computing course. So where people is one of our strengths, people is also our weakness, because we want people to come into the organization and go out.
Right.
So we've constantly got a new supply of people, and you've just finished training somebody and then that person goes out. So
Right.
yeah. So I think that is also a challenge for us. And yeah, I think what we also try to do, especially with the climates, is to look at growing in the greenhouses instead, or shade net structure. So that way we're mitigating 90% of our risk when it does come to farming, and also, looking after or stopping pests within the environment that we are growing. So, but yeah, there's always ways around that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that people are obviously your greatest strengths, but also a weakness, right? Do you ever have any of the homeless people that you've trained and taken care of that leave the organization but come back in a positive way to say, hey, this is what I've done with my life. Thank you so much for your assistance, and, actually growing in a positive way?
Most definitely. And yeah, from our side, I mean, there are so many success stories. Nice. And you can actually see when you've helped somebody and they've come back on their feet. There's a lot of people that are successful. I'm just taking, for example, we've had one guy. He came into the organization and he worked his way up. We got to work on the outside. He still stayed on our halfway house contribution program. And that person is now a director for a international multi-million rand company.
Oh, wow.
So from being homeless to being in that scenario,
Sure.
that right there in itself is a very big success story.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And even with the farmers, we've had a lot of farmers that's also come through our program, and they are running commercial farms.
Wow.
So, and successful, so some of them even planting for McCain's and other organizations as well. So supplying Pick and Pay, supplying roots, supplying spas. So it really all depends on the person, and anybody can make a success of themselves. So
Absolutely.
regardless of your circumstances, it's just some people need to start over, and when they do that, they need to just push themselves and work on themselves. So it really depends on person to person, but we do have a lot of success stories that with people coming through the organization.
Lovely. That's so heartwarming to hear. So with having a platform such as Young Farmer, what would you say where can we assist, right? Because we are obviously people that are very passionate about sharing stories and getting the word out there, and collaborating as well. What do platforms such as this, how do they positively impact people like you as well as other farmers out there?
So I think it's just also to create the awareness of the organization and, notifying people of there is hope, and farming is also a very big way to also recover from trauma and, some addictions and things like that as well. And again, just to collaborate and to work together towards ensuring a better South Africa. So there's quite a few different ways to look at it and to assist and to help. Especially when we take, let's take for example just Ekurhuleni. Ekurhuleni, we're sitting of a homeless population of close to about 12,000 people. From that 12,000 people, there's only space for maybe about 3,000 people in different shelters. So we're sitting with a deficit of about 9,000 people that have got nowhere to go. And again, people are people, so regardless of where they come from or where they've been, sometimes people just need a second chance.
Right.
So, and again, if people can use agriculture as a form to actually uplift themselves and sort themselves out and, reintegrate themselves, it's a very big platform that could be utilized and for people to grow. So, yeah.
Lovely. So you obviously mentioned that you guys are a non-profit center. So how do you stay afloat? Where does the money come from? Because you need to feed people. You probably have people that are assisting you that you need to pay. You also need to pay yourself. So where would you say are the places that you have sources of income, or maybe rather not income, but just making sure that the business stays afloat and you're able to essentially achieve your objectives and goals?
Yeah. So from our side, we are diverse in what we do. So we've got a fundraising department that actually just does fundraising on a day-to-day basis. We then also focus on corporate social investment, as well as then corporate social responsibility, as well as BEE, generating income projects as well. We are also then our self-sustainability side for the organization. We are about 50% self-sustainable.
Okay.
And with that 50%, that comes from building and manufacturing and installing greenhouses all over South Africa. So we build 10 meter by 30 meter greenhouses. We build 6 meter wide greenhouses, 4 meter wide greenhouses. We've then got the commercial seedling growing operation, which we grow seedlings and sell those to farmers. We've also got the AgriCETA accredited training. So that side we do plant production NQF1 to NQF4, as well as animal production NQF1 to NQF4. So that's another income generating project. We've also got charity shops. We've also got a self-sustainable bakery. And then we've got obviously the lands that we're growing, so when you're doing cabbage, for an example, you producing around about 30 to 33,000 heads per hectare, that we're selling to Pick and Pay for maybe 8 Rand to 14 Rand a head. So on average, let's say 10 Rand. So, you should be doing about 330,000 to about 300,000 per hectare. So that's, again, it's a diverse income model. We farm with sheep. We've got cattle. We've also got some chickens. We've got some pigs. So yeah, lots of mixed farming operations happening. And then obviously we do the turnkey operations where we go outside and assist other people, and we do consulting work in the agricultural space. So all of those come together, and that is where we generate our income for the organization. So instead of just getting a handout, we say, give us a hand up,
Right.
so we can assist ourselves and, also assist others.
Nice. That is a lot of things, but it's also very inspiring to see that you don't limit yourself or the organization to just one part, but there's so many other things you do, but it's also in the ecosystem of farming, you know? So you mentioned programs as well, right? So for a young farmer watching this, maybe coming out of school and they're looking for work learning integrated programs, or they just want to start to learn how to farm, can they reach out to you on one of the contact information that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, most definitely, and we've got people reaching out on a daily basis, and again we assist them. So we are funded also by the Department of Social Development in some aspects as well, and from time to time we then also have courses available, which is either sponsored or through the department, or from private companies. So from that we then look at taking in people, giving them some sort of a course in agriculture, and then having them exit the program. So yeah, and then also linking them up maybe with commercial farms for those guys to actually go and work at. Or again, they can look at starting their own business and then, capitalize on that. Right. But at least we create that ecosystem for them to be able to do that, which helps us a lot. Yeah.
Nice. So when you are not on the farm, do you have people that you can rely on, like your family? You mentioned your dad was the one that started the organization. So do you have like family members or friends, like a community of people that you can count on when you're not feeling so great or you're unable to do other things?
Yeah. So the organization, we've got about 86 staff members within the organization, and there's a complete management team. So me being the CEO, I also do travel quite a bit as well. Right. So I'm not always on the site, and we work on different sites. So I've got a very strong management team, and I can rely on them to do the majority of work when I'm not around. So there is a lot of structures and things in place to mitigate that. Nice. But yeah, it is sometimes a struggle, and I'm a very hands-on person. So yeah, I like things to be done in a specific way, and I'm very meticulous about a lot of things as well. So it's always better to do it yourself when you can. But yeah, I do have people that I can rely on when it comes to running everything.
Lovely, yeah. Lovely. And then in terms of the community support, you mentioned your headquarters are in Benoni, is that correct? Do you get people around that also volunteer to assist, that also donate and things of that nature, or has it just been you and your organization that does everything?
No, so we network and we partner with a lot of organizations. So to give you an example, we've got one organization which is Siyabonga Africa. They also focus on bakery training and various different skills development, also in the agricultural space. And with them, we're working currently on a project with UNICEF, which is an international organization, and we're building their farms for them. So we also work with the Galega Mothlantle Foundation, so a former ex-president.
Oh, nice.
So we do all of their agricultural projects as well. So setting up agricultural projects within schools, and also showing them the different ways of actually growing crops, and Then we also work with the Department of Agriculture, the National Development Agency, the Mining Development Agency. We've also assisted them in building a few projects for them. So you have to partner in the industry if you want to grow the industry. So absolutely. I know somebody else would be Agri-Skills Transfer, which is also quite a big agricultural training institute. So we've also done some work for them. So it's all about partnering with a lot of different people within the industry to look at growing the industry. But you can't do it yourself. So yeah.
So, when you are not on the farm and you're not helping people, what does Zen like to get up to?
So me, I like hunting and fishing
Okay.
and going to the gym. I try to work out every single day if possible.
Hmm.
And it's better for your head actually than what it is for your body. So
Right.
but those are some of the things, and just spending some time relaxing, and 90% of the time working. So yeah.
Nice. No, that's great. All right, Zen. So you mentioned that the organization was started by your father and it was due to his addiction problems, right? Do you mind just giving us a little bit of information about how that happened and how it impacted you as a young boy, seeing someone that you look up to struggling from addiction?
So, I think it was also, I mean, there was a lot of good things that stemmed from that. And I also commend my father, for changing his life around and for actually doing what he did. And in the same breath, at least we're able to continue that legacy. So when we are currently looking at addictions and drug addictions, I think the international drug recovery rate is between 1 and 9%. So it's very, very, very minimal. So us as an organization, we've got a success rate of about 30 to 40% when we're looking at taking people off of the street. We address those issues. So we work with an organization called Elam Clinic, which is a drug rehab, and they come to our center on twice a week, which they then actually run outpatient programs. So we have to look at addressing those issues first, and I think a lot of the other things is trauma. People experience so much trauma in life, and that trauma is either through families or drugs itself or substance abuse, or various different things. So, and you have to look at addressing those issues. So if you take a person out of a normal working environment and actually take that person to a farm, when you're there in that land, your head gets cleared. So you don't think about anything else. You in the sun, you're getting your vitamin D, you're getting your dopamine. You might be cross with the whole world, but you're on a farm, and you've got to actually work on yourself, and you've got to sort your own issues out. So I think also from a recovery point of view, it's one of the best angles that you can actually look at, to take person out of a busy city and actually put them on a farm and let them start working on themselves. But also, provide the extra services. So like the rehabs or professional counselors or psychologists that goes with that. Our organization, we've also got a social worker, social auxiliary worker, and a nurse. So they also are there to assist those people. So we, as a person comes in, we also draw up what we call a PDP, or a personal development plan. And we look at assisting that person from a holistic point of view and, working with them. So we set specific targets for that person. We help them to draw up a CV, help them to open a bank account. If they don't have an ID, get them to open up an ID or get an ID. So you've got to look at it as a holistic program, and everything needs to work together. So, but drug recovery is a serious issue in South Africa, and I think it's also something that we need to put a lot of focus on. Youngsters lately are also smoking a lot of cannabis, and also when you're looking at that, I mean, you can go to any shopping center now and you find 3, 4, 5 cannabis shops all over. Right. So, and generally when you're actually smoking cannabis, you killing 99% of the beneficial cannabinoids and things that actually is there to assist and to help people. So so there's also different ways of looking at it. The other drug is cat or crystal meth, which a lot of people is also battling with and trying to get off of that addiction. There's also heroin. We had a service delivery blitz about 2 weeks ago with the MEC of social development, and we had one of our managers actually spoke there. He's been clean for 4 years, from heroin. So it really is all about the mindset of the person, and for that person to come over and conquer the addiction. So it really can be done. But again, you need to have that willpower to do it, and we provide a platform for people to do that. So if they do it, it's up to them. If they don't, it's like that saying, you can take the horse to the water, but you cannot make them drink.
Absolutely.
So we give them a second chance, we give them a third chance, up to an extent, and we try to help them as far as what we can.
Right.
But yeah, drugs is a serious problem inside South Africa, and I think again, looking at agriculture, it is definitely a way to alleviate drug abuse. Yeah.
Definitely. So the organization Manger Care Center was started a year before you were born. So does this mean that your father essentially decided to, change his life just before you were born? Did you ever experience him as a user, or by the time he came to the earth, had he already started changing his life?
Yeah, so when I was born, my father was actually in prison.
Okay.
So my mother was at hospital alone. But yeah, I know they also had a lot of issues and a lot of different things. So, and again, there was something good that stemmed out of that.
Absolutely.
So I think he changed his mind and changed his perception. So I know it was also a few years after that he also still abused drugs, but he turned his life around. So I also can't remember too much of that when I was so young. But I know there wasn't any physical abuse or anything like that when I was growing up, which was good. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that a lot of people struggle from drugs such as heroin. You mentioned cat. Currently in the center, would you say there's one prevalent drug that most people that come in are using and are struggling to, stop using or stop abusing?
Yeah, so I think the two drugs that really stand out would be excessive marijuana use, and then also crystal meth. So those are sort of the two drugs that is really destroying a lot of lives. So yeah, crystal meth is just, it's next level, and it's very hard for people to actually get off of crystal meth. Me personally, I think that probably crystal is far worse than heroin.
Sure.
But again, anything is possible, and it all depends on the person and how they want to do that. So our model, we also focus on spiritual upliftment. So we also say, you need to invite God into your life, and you need to grow spiritually as well. So we always look at the physical side of it. Make sure you're getting enough exercise. Make sure that everybody is working. The people aren't idle. They're not sitting around. So everybody needs to be busy. We also look at the psychosocial side, and on the psychosocial side, we've got spiritual counselors as well as psychologists that then also speak to the people and assist the people as necessary. And then sort of the fourth aspect is the romantic side of the people. So we also want them to have relationships and things like that, and we don't discriminate against those. So, but again, I think those will be the four aspects of a person actually, bettering themselves and becoming who they are supposed to be. But yeah, I think the biggest issue would be trauma, and trauma related to those people and the circumstances that they've been in. So, yeah.
I was actually about to ask, what do you think is the main cause of people turning to substance abuse? Because, we are in a country that a lot of youth and just general people are struggling with drug abuse, and there's obviously causes for that. From your experience, what would you say is the one thing that you've seen that causes people to really just give up and turn to substance abuse?
Yeah, so I think in the homeless perspective, what often happens is a person will be on the streets. I'm going to use this as an example. A guy comes home and he finds his wife in bed with somebody else, and this guy loses it. He ends up shooting the other person, and then all of a sudden now he goes to prison. He gets locked up. When he comes out, he's got nowhere to go.
Right.
I'm using this as just a scenario, but now that person needs to start over his whole life again. So he might be on the streets. When he's on the streets, then they start taking drugs, and the drugs is actually, either to keep them warm or, for them not to feel the pain, and they use it as a coping mechanism. So I'd say drugs as well as alcohol. They're using that as a coping mechanism, or a mechanism to actually bottle it up and, drink to forget about it, or use substance to forget about it and not deal with those issues. So, but it still comes back to trauma being the common denominator. And if you look at addressing that trauma and actually talking about the trauma and working through that trauma, it's different, because then you are actually able to deal with it. And, you have to look at addressing the root cause of it. So, and trauma is 90% of the case linked to that drug addiction. Yeah.
Okay. And around, especially your headquarters, since I'm assuming that's where you are most of the time and that's where you house all these people, have you ever had any issues or situations of drug dealers being around and potentially having the people that you are assisting actually, having access to them?
Yeah, so it is always a grave concern for us. And again, now you're sitting with drug dealers and they know that there is a population, and it's a concentrated population on one specific spot. And it makes it very difficult for us. So we're also involved, and we work with the Benoni Community Policing Forum. And in that aspect as well, at least we address those issues as they come up. So a lot of I think within the organization, we've also got a very tight-knit community, and everybody looks after each other. So people want to see people recover and sort their lives out. So if somebody's busy doing something and they're not supposed to be doing it, or, phoning a dealer, 99% of the times it does get reported. And, we then look at sorting those oaks out and getting them arrested. So if the drug dealers come, we've also been involved with lots of buy and busts, if you want to call it, and getting those drug dealers off of the streets. So you have to be proactively involved in the different components of that. So yeah. So I also used to be the chairman for the Benoni CPF Sector 3, as well as then the vice chair for the whole of the Benoni area. So I mean, that was part of my evening job, if you want to call it. So we used to go out, patrol every night or every second night. We used to have operations with the police and actually clean up the streets, So you're not just sitting and moaning about the crime, you're actually doing something about it. Yeah. Because I think that's, again, you have to be proactively involved in that. And the only way to do it is to get up and do it.
Absolutely.
Nobody else is going to do it. So you have to try, and you have to try and mitigate all of those risks as far as possible.
Right.
Yeah.
So for someone that is a current addict to whatever substance, what would you say to them as some words of assistance, and to just know that there is something better out there for them?
Yeah, so I think first of all, it's you're not alone. There are people that is out there. There's people that would like to assist you and to help you. And you don't have to give up. There is life after addiction. So you just need to deal with that addiction. So also a lot of the cases, people, if you've got addiction, your families generally write you off, so the people that loves you the most and you expect them to love you the most are usually the first people that will hurt you the most because they don't want you have you around with your addiction. Right. So there is help outside there. There is, like I said, the organisation we work with primarily is Elam Clinic, but there are other rehabs as well. There is also Project Exodus, which is also an international recovery program. It's also somebody that we also work with, and they focus on drug recovery, through online platforms. So you can be anywhere in the world and you can still get help. Right. So you're not alone. There is people that care about you. There is people that are willing to assist you and to also help you come out of those circumstances. But you need to take the first step and you need to admit, listen, I've got a drug problem. I need to sort myself out. You can't pretend and say, no, but I don't have a drug problem. Right. So you need to look at yourself and you need to decide, listen, I want to turn my life around. I need to stop what I'm doing. I need to work on myself. Yeah.
So for a farmer that's watching this today and feels stuck, doesn't know, what to do, where to start, what are some words of encouragement that you would give them to kind of just give them that little push?
So I think for farmers, they need to really focus on starting somewhere. So even if you've just got a small backyard garden, build on that, but start somewhere. Don't just say, yeah, but you don't have a farm or this or that. Start somewhere. Build a little small-scale growing system in your backyard and start there. Build up that knowledge. Get to feel the soil. Look at how the plants grow, and practice, and then from there you can always look at expanding it. Like I said, we started very, very small and we grew and grew and grew and grew, but you have to build up that expertise. And again, a lot of young farmers, they want to get into farming and then all of a sudden they think they're going to become millionaires overnight, and it's not the case. Farming is all about discipline and being consistent. You work very hard. I mean, when you're a farmer, you're the boss, you're the manager, you are also the worker, you are the security, you are the counselor if there's problems. So, being a farmer, you've got to do everything. So your scope is so diverse. And it's also one of the most rewarding jobs that you can actually have. So, yeah. But again, start somewhere, even if it's small scale, make sure that you just start. Don't sit around and wait, get off your ass and do it.
Absolutely. As you heard, young farmers, start somewhere, start with what you have. Today was a very inspiring conversation with the founder of Manger Care Center, Zen, whose business model is focused on helping people, empowering communities, as well as growing the agricultural sector. Thank you so much for joining us, Zen. We look forward to seeing you grow, seeing you collaborate further, and helping more people.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having us. We really appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you.